over to you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing with MCC and how you got involved?
Yeah, well, obviously the MCC began for me because of the Melbourne Football Club and my association with the Melbourne Football Club over the years. Once I retired, more like giving the arse, I continued to work for Melbourne in many different sort of roles, different I guess manifestations over the years. It was a funny thing really at the start. It was more of a marketing thing and using the profile to gain, I guess, interest from the members, from the key stakeholders, which are the supporters, but sponsors as well. And I really enjoyed it for a while. It was a good job. Love working in sport, and for such a massive organisation like the Melbourne Football Club, AFL MCC. So I started attending the MCC Sporting Sections Committee meetings to represent the Melbourne Football Club, and got to know all of those guys, and then the MCC committee. And the MCC were sort of trying to stay ahead of the curve as well, but they'd started a netball team as part of. So I guess for those people that don't know, the Melbourne Cricket Club had been around for 160, 70 years. And they've always had a thing called the sections of the committee. You pay your membership to the club, and you can be a part of the bowls, the lacrosse, the shooting, golf, football, whatever it is. They've slowly grown over the years. There was a bridge. There's special interests, it's just like a normal club, and it just offers up opportunities for its members. Now we know that, of course, one of them is cricket as well, but we know that football has grown massively over the years to become the number one sport in Australia. The men's team had been going around as the oldest club football club in the world, existing football club in the world, a massive success, not in terms of premierships lately, but the fact that the Melbourne Football Club was the very first club created by the MCC, a cricket club, which is a wonderful story, but we won't go into that. They wanted to stay ahead of the curve again and be a part of the women's football juggernaut. And why wouldn't you? So an offering to its members, if you would like to play for the MCC Women's, here it is. The MCC bought a beautiful piece of land down in Beaumaris, which Holly, you know very well, and you saw it go through its early stages from being built to what it is now. And I know you play on a lot of football grounds here, there, and everywhere else, suburban and otherwise. This one is probably, it's MCG dimensions. The grass is probably better than the MCG. It is unbelievable. And I'm putting my marketing hat on, aren't I, trying to recruit. We've got the greatest facilities and grass for girls to play football on. It is for just the girls. And the MCC came to me and said, would you like to help us create this new venture, the MCC Women's Football Club? And I said, well, of course, absolutely. So I got involved with great girls like yourself, Holly, and we started to build this new club from the bottom up. And it wasn't easy. It's been difficult, really difficult, because you haven't got the backing of a men's football team in suburbia here in Victoria somewhere. You haven't got husbands going, why don't you, or boyfriends going, why don't you go and play with the team that I'm playing in, and we'll spend time together on the weekend. It's not happening like that. There's no feeder club. So it's a very small, I guess, field of people that we're working with, and we're trying to create something special. We'll get there.
And you'd had already some history doing coaching already in sport. I think you coach your son, is that right?
I do, yep.
Yeah, and then, so coming into women's sport, was that a whole brand new thing, or had you had some experience in that field already?
I think women and children have a similar a viewpoint on sport, and I don't mean that. Let me expand on that before anyone jumps to conclusions.
I'm getting flushed. I'm getting on the face, Robbo.
Yeah. Well, no, I think girls bring a fresh approach to football. And that was exciting and that was fun for me because I'd been part of football since I was a pup, and we take it very seriously. It's very militant in its in the way we go about it. It's how high would you like me to jump, and girls will tend to say, well, why do you want me to jump? And that explanation given, and if the explanation's good enough, then they'll do it. And it's the same with kids too. They're just so excited to be out there doing something that they've not been able to do before. And girls, I think girls, they come to a football game and go, wow, this is I'm not supposed to be doing this almost. This is a man's world. There still is that mentality a little bit. Maybe not so much for someone like you, Holly, who've just been around sport your whole life, and it's just an easy transition for you. But there's a lot of girls out there that grew up in a more traditional, I'm going to say, household where it was men do this and girls do that. Okay. And whether it's right or whether it's wrong, we won't go into that because that's a whole nother thing. There's things that men have had to miss out on that they'd probably like to do as well that girls do, right? So we won't go into that. But certainly when girls come to a football ground and they're kicking a footy like they've seen guys on the TV do since they were small, there's this excited sort of wow, but there's also this trepidation. So my approach has been quite, it's easy for me because my thing in life since my career finished has been I just love coaching kids and helping people do things for the first time. There's nothing better for me than seeing a child, and I can only sort of talk about the kids that I've coached through my son's footy team and basketball teams. To see them achieve something and the look on their face, yeah, and when they come up to me and give me a high five and just to even see them do something on the court that they've never done before fills me with such joy. It is my reason for being a part of sport now. I don't have any interest in coaching men. I have no interest at all. They're not excited about it. Of course, they love their footy or whatever, but it doesn't excite me at all. What excites me is seeing something happen for the first time. What excites me is imparting knowledge to somebody that is just so happy to get it and so willing to use it. And it sort of harps back to my beginning as well, which we can get into later on if you want to as well.
Yeah, for sure. So it doesn't sound like your style of coaching's had to really adjust at all. It's just really embracing that childlike essence of play out in the field and just allowing them to get out and have a go.
It's a really great way to put it, Holly, what you just said. I remember I played a game of football once for Melbourne and I think it was against the Sydney Swans and I started off the game, played well in the first quarter, I thought, and then the second and third quarter I just went missing. And that's that byproduct of playing in the forward line, and especially as a half-forward flanker. You're not sort of around the ball. You're relying on people kicking the ball to you and yourself running to the right spots. Well, the second and third quarter, I just got nowhere near it. We were up by like 30 points by the end of the, I think, second quarter. Sydney made this massive comeback, and with about 4 minutes to go, we were 3 goals behind. Well, I just went sick and had this purple patch of just, I don't know where it came from, but it was full of jumping, ridiculous celebrations, exuberance, and goal kicking. And I ended up kicking 5 goals, I think 3 of which were in the last 2 minutes to put us in front. The Melbourne crowd went absolutely ballistic. My teammates were going ballistic. We ended up winning the game. And in the paper the next day, it said a headline, "The Devil May Care Demon." And there was a picture of me on the back page, a little picture of me on the front page, a picture of me spread across, a couple of pages in the back. Unbelievable stuff as a 21-year-old boy, 22-year-old boy. You're copying that and you just think, wow, how amazing that. But since then, I've always hung on to that Devil May Care headline because I think it really did sum me up a bit in the way I went about my sport and my football. I threw caution to the wind every time I went out on the ground. I just thought, well, let's just go and have a crack and see if it all falls into place. If it doesn't fall into place, well, then, I won't play anymore. I won't get picked or whatever. But if it does, well, then, why wouldn't you try to take a hanger if it was there instead of going, well, maybe I won't? Of course, there has to be the ability to be able to do it, and I had ability to be able to do it, and that was put there by my father early days. We'll talk about that, but I have that now in spades. I have this, sort of happy-go-lucky mentality and my happy-go-lucky nature with sport, and with that, I think it fits well with women's football and with kids' sport. It's hand in glove sort of stuff for me. Yeah, I like the goals. I like the marks. I didn't like the serious stuff. Sport's meant to be played. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, fun and enjoyable. And like, I'm curious about, you shared that happy-go-lucky, get out and have a crack, really just like unleash and give it a go. One, it's got to be more fun for the person playing. But two, like, I'm curious about that style attitude in the men's and in the more masculine environment. It doesn't feel like it has a place. Like, it's a lot more serious and structured, and there's a way, and you do it like this in the men's, but it sounds like different in the women's. Would that be right?
Men and women, I mean, we're different in so many ways. I mean, as much as we try to equalise, we shouldn't. We should celebrate what we are, and as long as it's not harmful in any way, I think that's the way we should approach everything. We're brought up a certain way, especially the baby boomers. They were brought up a certain way, and their parenting techniques sort of went into my generation, and it was, boys don't cry, and it's typically a boy's fault. The girls get away with a lot more, and girls can be soft, and boys are supposed to be hard. And it's archaic in its thinking, but it's just the way it was, and you accept it and go, okay. We are in a different time now, completely. I mean, my son looks at me, and when I tell him these stories, and he just goes, "What?" Like, even when I said to him not long ago, girls never used to play football, and he's like, "What? What do you mean? Like, how does that?" It's like, well, it's soon. It's going to be such a thing of the past that people will think, how crazy is that women weren't allowed to play football? They were allowed, but they weren't. And then you go back further, and women weren't allowed to vote. I mean, it boggles the mind, because for me, that boggles my mind. So how far we have come. But we must be very mindful, I think, every day, that we shouldn't take this too far, so much as, it has to be this way. You must do this, you must do that. Just be very careful with your dealings, that people should be just able to do what they want to do. And as long as it's not hurting anybody, So we need to be a little bit forgiving of people in the past and the way things are now, and it's baby steps. It boggles the mind how far we've come in such a short time, and I'm enjoying being a part of that. My approach to, as you said before, to women and when they're playing football is just very much like it is with boys. I think girls really want me to treat them like I would treat a bloke. Don't sugarcoat this. Freaking tell me. Like, come on, give it to me, And maybe a lot of men coaches think, I've got to soften this, and I've got to really over-explain. And no, yes, there is that element. Girls will tend to ask a few more questions than boys will, but allow that to happen, Otherwise, do this like you would a men's team, Structure training like you would structure a men's training session, because the girls just want that. They're like, come on, mate, give it to us. We're big, strong, tough people. We can take this. Don't sugarcoat, for Christ's sake, And then later on, yes, there is certainly a scope there with women's football to over-explain things, because girls will then ask the most, I think they're questions that just sort of go without saying, but that's only because I've been a part of football for so long. And then a girl will ask me a question, you just sort of go, I thought that was obvious, but it's not. It's actually not obvious.
Yeah.
You have to explain a lot more. And I love that, because we're all vain. Like, we all love to be asked questions of something that we kind of think that we know a bit about. So I'm really enjoying the process. I thought I needed to explain everything at training, at the start and through training, but no, it's not the case. Do that later, or maybe do that before, but treat the just like you would treat anybody else. And I say them, I mean women. And if I was talking about men, I'd say them as well. I just treat these people that you've got in front of you like you would treat anybody else. It's kind of equal there. But also understand that girls are different to boys. Boys are different to girls. And if you understand that, Holly, you are different to me, your outlook on life, the way you see things is completely different to the way I see them, because I have male hormones and chromosomes and things that just, I'm wired differently. Understanding that, well, that's the next thing.
It's such a fascinating conversation, this part, and I'm so glad that we're talking about it, because I'm very much of the belief that you don't get the best out of female athletes or female in business or women in general, or probably anyone, if you treat them in the same way that you would treat a men's club or a man. Like we have different needs and we'll respond differently to different things. I've certainly had coaches where they've come in and absolutely berated us and yelled at us, and just come straight from a men's environment and come to ours, and we didn't respond. Many of the girls didn't respond, and it didn't really fit. But then I've had the other end where we have coaches come in that ask us lots of questions when we just want to be directed and be like, this is what you need to get out and do. And that it sounds similar to what you're saying. Like there's kind of just an understanding that it's different and you're going to have to adjust.
100%. Yeah, like, I mean, look, I've spoken about this a lot, and I do a lot of talks to young kids. I have done over the years, not so much anymore. Working through the AFL's respect and responsibility, drugs and alcohol awareness, done a lot of that over the years. And we had a lot of training in the area of domestic violence. Now, it's a very slippery slope, and it's a very difficult conversation. It's a very difficult subject. But we were given plenty of opportunity to learn and also to listen. I went a little bit further with it and investigated a few other things, read a few books, watched a few movies, and I learned so much about what it is to be a man. I think this is when I talk to young kids, I say to them, boys, how can you expect to understand a woman? I mean, this is the question that's been asked for a millennia. Try to understand a woman. Well, good luck with that. But what you first need to do is understand yourself and the reason why you do what you do. Okay, it'll start opening up all these other answers for you, because you'll go, right, well, I understand as a man I do that because of this. Well, a woman does that like that because of similar sort of pastime. So let me explain in a very quick, a very elevated sort of statement kind of way. We come from, we evolved from where we evolved from. So we're going way back here, tens of thousands of years.
Take it back.
Way back. Let's go back. A time where we're all sitting around fires and we were a community in a camp. You get what I mean, okay? When we're not in modern day. We're right back in, not prehistoric. Well, yeah, prehistoric, before there was anything written. And the way we worked, the way we succeeded, the way we became the master race on this planet, and we're subsequently ruining the planet, but that's another subject. But how we became this master race is because we celebrated then what it was to be a man and what it was to be a woman. There was no such thing as prejudice. There's no such thing as sexism. There was no such thing as equal opportunity and all those sorts of things. There was only, we need to get this done to survive. Use your competency to get us from birth to a good age, and protect the family. So women give birth, men don't. Okay, so there's the first thing. First thing we've got to understand is that the girls equipped back then with the apparatus to, incubate and then to feed a child when there wasn't a lot of food around. Okay, so breast milk became really, really important. So while that's happening, we're sitting around like shags on rocks, us blokes going, well, there's not much I can really do here. Well, what I can do is pick up the spear and protect. And what I can do is go out and get the meat. And meat's a very important part of human history because it allowed our brains to grow and frontal lobes and all those sorts of things. So long-winded this, and I'm trying to make it quick. So off we go, us blokes, out into the trail with our spears and our rocks and our whatevers. While the girls stayed behind, kept the fire going, protected the children, chatted, talked, did 5 or 6 things at once while the kids were running around, keeping the fire going, to food, making sure everything was just ticking over and waiting for the men to come back with the meat, with the fur, with whatever we needed to survive. Okay, you've got your job, we've got ours, now we go. So there's 20 of us in a hunting pack. We have to be quiet. We have to get down low. We have to go into situations as blokes that are very, very dangerous. And one slip up means death, okay? We have to take on a saber-toothed tiger, right? A deadly animal, a bear, to get the fur from the bear and the meat to feed the family. And that's a really ridiculously bad situation to be in. You don't want to go and meet up with a bear with a spear. I'd not do it. I wouldn't do it, but they had to, right, to feed the family, because that was our job. So being quiet and dealing with a big problem for guys like that, it was a daily occurrence. So we get the meat, we do what we've got to do, and then we come back to camp to rapturous applause. And yes, the men are back with there's the fire still going. Yes, well done, ladies. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad to be alive to see you. And then the dancing and the fun starts back in camp. Everyone's so happy we're all back together. Okay, so what do I mean by all of that? The reason why women can do 5 or 6 things at once is because of that. I mean, I don't have to explain it, do I? Men had to become very singularly focused on the bird on the branch, to be able to throw the rock, to be able to hit that bird on the branch. That's why we love basketball. It's why we love sports so much, This is not a cover. I mean, men and women are not just men, and there's women have male tendencies, and so I'm
completely agree. Completely agree.
So being quiet for a man when there's problems is better for us. We like to sit down and be quiet when there's problems. Girls, when there's problems, they like to talk it out because they're used to being in a camp and everybody helping everybody, talking, whatever. But that just doesn't work for us. You, Holly, in a room will see things better than I will see them. You'll be able to see better than me at short range. But I can see in the long distance better than you because I evolved as a man. I evolved to be able to see, the meat off into the distance. I can become very singularly focused. That's why I go to the fridge and I cannot see the butter. Where's the butter for mum? Where is the butter? Mum would say, it's right there, you idiot. We just don't see close up as well as you do. You taste better than me. You will taste food better than me. Why? Because you had to taste the food to make sure it was okay for the kids over a millennia, no poisons or whatever. Everything close up, everything communal, everything. That's why you are a woman. And a man goes out and does all those dangerous things. That's why we're reckless. That's why we'll drive cars fast. That's why we crash. That's why we do stupid things, because we've got a chemical in our brain that shuts off bad situations like hunting the bear, and we just go into that peril because we have to. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't get the meat. We wouldn't do that thing again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll do silly things, okay? So you fast forward thousands of years and now we're in today's society. Going out and getting the meat is not required anymore because we can just go down to the Woolies or whatever. There's no big celebration when you come home anymore. In fact, it's probably the opposite. We're not living like we used to live, and we don't celebrate those things that make us, women and what make us men. And we need to, whilst also harbouring an idea that everyone should be able to do whatever they want to do. If it's playing football, well then great, go for it. But I tell young kids, understand self first. Get a good idea of why you do things the way you do. A lot of aha moments when you investigate, because there's a million different things that you'll do in your day, Holly, that are put there by ancestors for thousands of years, and the same for me, okay? Reverse parking. Girls ain't good at it. Why? Because depth perception, not as good as blokes, because we will throw on the spears, all right?
I can't help it, but the part of me in me that's like, that has to be a sweeping generalization, because of course there are times when we nail it. I can't help it.
It's a sweeping generalization, and it's not the same for everybody because, like I said, there are girls with male tendencies, there's boys with female tendencies. So we live in a different age. But on the most part, if you say this, girls are better at doing lots of things at once, all girls are like, yes, we are, we absolutely are. You can't do 5 things like we can do it. But then I say, well, you can't reverse park as good as us. Oh, that's a sweeping comment. That's bull crap. Like,
Perfect example.
accept this fact that there are things that you are good at and there are things that I'm good at. Like, enjoy the fact that you can make life. Enjoy the fact that you taste food better than I taste food, you know, because you got more, taste buds on your tongue. That's a great thing. Embrace it, enjoy it, and love it. And you will get through your life so much better. In fact, you will have better relationships. I understand so much more about my partner now, the reason why she goes about things. When I come home exhausted and I want to sit down, and she just wants to talk about things. And I have to understand that it's not her fault. And it's not my fault that I don't want to say anything. It's just the way we evolved. And if we can somehow meet in the middle with this, she needs to understand that, yes, he needs his quiet time, and he needs to understand that I need to talk and give me something back. We're going to be a happier relationship. So, that's a really sort of big, wide, huge subject. But it has helped me so much, Holly, with my day-to-day dealings. Like, I'm not perfect in my relationship. In fact, I get it wrong quite often. We all do, because it's hard. There's a lot of other things going on at the moment that make things really, really difficult. But it's made me a better person, understanding that I do that because of that, and I get it. And she does that because of that, and I get it. So I walk around the planet a little bit. I negotiate it a little bit better, I think, because I know those things.
Where has that wisdom come from?
It's I grew up with 3 sisters and a mum who was very my mum was very matter of fact. She was a tough woman, and my dad was probably a little bit more feminine than my mum, but also very baby boomerish as well. So, Russ, mate, you've got to suck it up. That came from both mum and dad. But I also had 3 sisters that I had to negotiate as well, who were probably on sync when it came to you know what I mean, with the menstruation cycle. So I had to really negotiate my way around that family household a little bit better. But what it did is it gave me a great insight into why girls are like they are and what they do and why they do it. And I also had a healthy, wonderful, beautiful respect because they are my sisters and I love them very much. That wisdom comes from my father. That wisdom comes from my curious nature. My phone, I apologise, I tried to turn it on silent. That came from my curious nature. But my mum, she lost her dad when she was 9. He just didn't come home. He died. He had a really quick illness. And then 4 years later, with 6 kids and a farm, her mum passed away. It was a broken heart, I would have thought, but heart attack. And so she was raised by her brother in a very, not poor, but, it wasn't easy for her. So she made really, really good. And she put, I think, that idea that, if there's something going to happen for you, you just got to go out and do it yourself. You've just got to do it, mate. You'll be right. Nothing's as hard as what I've had to go through. So get out there and do it. And I've sort of taken that into my life, and it's helped me achieve what I've achieved in sport and achieved whatever I've achieved. But I've also had this curious feminine understanding through my father and my 3 sisters. The reason I got into working with women is because it shat me no end to know that my sisters have to live in a world of almost fear, where I can just walk around and never have any fear of anything. I mean, I can walk across at 1 o'clock in the morning, I can walk across a very dark, dimly lit, scary car park to go to the Safeway if I want to. And if there's a car in there full of young lads, I just do not care. I don't think of it. I'm just like, whatever, there's no issues for me. But for you, Holly, you'll sort of go, I don't think I'll do that, because those guys could friggin' kill me, or they could rape me, or they could, and that is scary as shit. And my sisters have to live in that world, and that annoys me that my species, my gender, puts that in you through shit that's happened in the past. There are so many great guys on the planet. In fact, 99.9% of us are fantastic. The repeat offenders, these guys that are just a little messed up, that make mistakes, ruin it for us. And I'm all about trying to help girls feel safe. Girls feel like they've got a voice. Girls feel like they can do anything because of that.
And I feel like the simplicity of what you're sharing is like, just understand, like, we're not out there to go where you're that and I'm this and we need to be fixed or they need to be different. It's like, no, let's just understand each other and give each other what we need from that perspective. It's so very different.
100%. We all, I think us blokes, we like to feel like we're in control. When we're out of control, we feel like we haven't got power, because it's not a bad thing. This is not an evil word. Testosterone is not an evil word. In fact, it's a beautiful thing, testosterone. It calms us down. It actually doesn't fire us up. And a lot of women will always say, no, testosterone fueled. And we'll say, oh, estrogen fueled, it's quite derogatory. Those two wonderful substances are the things that make us who we are and actually calm us. It's when we start developing more estrogen, us blokes, which I'm into now because I'm over 40. My testosterone is halving every day, and I'm getting more estrogen because I cry at the drop of the hat these days, and I never used to, about beautiful things. That's when things start going wrong. So, it is an oversimplistic view of things, and I think that's how we need to keep it, because there's so much confusion. There's so much that you can do and see. And I mean, on this, every day we are bombarded with information. Sometimes just dumbing it down and keeping it simple is a good thing.
For sure. What would you say, this is a random question, to Robbo back when he's playing for Melbourne as a young kid coming through? What advice would you give him now?
That's a really good one. So much, I would be, when I snapped my Achilles in 2008, my penultimate year of football. And it was the beginning of the end for me, but it was a lot to do with where the football club was sort of at, bottom of the ladder, restarting, all of that sort of stuff. If we were in line for winning a premiership, things would have been fine. And not just for me, but a few other guys as well. I came back, and I think my first game back in the seniors, after a couple of games in the Resis, after 6 months off, I came back and played on Matty Scarlett of Geelong fame, kind of a handy player. Scarlo and I had a really healthy respect for each other. He played mostly on David Neitz, or the bigger guy, but every now and then I would get him, and because we were sort of the same era, same age, and I just thought he was a tremendous defender and respected the way he went about it, hard man. I think he sort of had respect for me too, because of the fact that I was, that devil-may-care kind of guy that he kind of would have probably liked to have been like. I wish I was a little bit more like him, a little bit more dour, but I wasn't. But anyway. And I kicked 3 goals on him when we didn't kick a lot of goals for the game. I kicked 3 goals, and I was getting the ball a lot and leading well and jumping well. And Scarlo said to me, "Bloody hell, mate, it's almost you've got faster. You're jumping high." I said, "Mate, I feel awesome. I feel fantastic. I feel refreshed. I feel smarter out here." I didn't say this to him, but I actually felt like I'd worked things out. A mature head on a young body would have been just so good. So there would have been so many things I would have told myself. Don't worry so much, Russ. Stop worrying so much about the result. Let the result happen. Let it come. The stress that you're putting into each situation is energy, and the energy is being zapped and drained from you. You probably could have done more. I would have been a little bit more professional, because I think we've seen the sort of advent of uber professionalism and what they can do, like your Juddies and the guys coming in now. They're making sure everything is 100%. The Richmond success is on the back of Trench Cotchin and those guys who have brought uber professionalism to their day-to-day dealings. It's for them. It's not about how many beers we can have and what sort of time we can have with the lads. It's about how will we involve our partners in this club. How do we, clean up after ourselves instead of getting somebody else to do it? That culture, I would have brought that culture a little bit better to the Melbourne Football Club if I'd have known better. I wish I did. But I was probably a little bit weak in that regard. I sort of went along with everybody else. And the reason I did that is because I didn't feel like I should have been there. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I never did. I never felt like, every day, every time around the MCG, and I'm like, really? You really want me to play? I can't believe this, It's unbelievable to me that I'm even in the AFL in the first place. So you sort of just go along with it. It's while I was waiting for the guys that just knew that they needed to be there and they were good to do all of that. But everybody probably felt the same way that I felt. So I wish I stood up more as a leader in moments. I would tell myself, do that. Just stand up for what you think is right, and start a movement, of professionalism at this football club.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, because how easy would it be for, like, it's easy to assume that playing at the top level, you deserve to be there, especially from the outside watching you play with confidence. So you assume that it's a confident being in your entirety, and that's just it's not the case, is it? Like, for any of us.
No, self-belief is something that you have to overcome. There's so much greatness in all of us, and it's stuff we will never get to see because people aren't, they can't get out of their own heads, and they're not confident enough to just do it. And if they did, my God, this world would be an amazing place. For me personally, I have the potential for me to do things is huge, scarily huge. I could do so many good things. I'm a very capable human being. I can play football, I can play music. You want me to draw something, I can draw, or I can bloody good dance too, Holly. You should think. Very confident now. And I don't care. I actually don't care. I'll say it. I am too old to worry about people saying, oh, you love yourself. Couldn't give a rat's ass if you think that. What I can do is, the scope of what I can do is huge, and I just need to get out of my own head and do it half the time. How do you do that, though? That's probably what you're asking. How do you actually get confident?
In my mind, yeah. How do you how do you narrow it down, and focus on the things?
It's like that Troy McClure on The Simpsons. He said one day on one of the shows, he's Troy McClure he wrote a self-help book called Get Confident, Stupid. That's brilliant. It's hard because it's in the doing, it really is. I think we sort of, if I'm being honest, we live in a world now where everybody has a voice because of this. And that's great, because if that makes you happy and gets you out of yourself, well, then good, But you've also got to handle disappointment a little bit better these days. There's so many of us. There's so many people with a voice. There's a pie, right? And back in the day, only a small amount of people got a piece of that pie. Now everyone's got equal opportunity at that pie. So as long as you're okay with just getting a little bit of that pie, you're like, well, hang on, I'm so talented and I'm really trying hard. How come I'm not getting anywhere? Well, that's everybody. You've got to be happy with what you got. Be happy with what you got. I'm getting happier every day with my lot in life, where I'm at. I've suffered some major disappointments. My marriage failed. My first marriage failed. I didn't like to fail at anything. It failed because of something that was completely out of my control. I had no control of that. I got delisted from the Melbourne Football Club. I felt like I had no control over that. I've been lucky with other things, but I've been unlucky with a couple of things. And my son, my only son, I only have one child, is so very important to me. I think you probably know that with my dealings. I mean, I start talking about him, I'll start bloody crying because he's so important to me and my position on this planet, because of my failures, right? But, it's a rich tapestry. I've learned so much from those failures. I think if you just got to, okay, here it is. I've got it. I think this is what it is. If I have any advice for anyone, you need to find mentors. Find someone that can help you or teach you. There will be a lot of people that say, well, I had an asshole of a father and mum wasn't there, or my upbringing was shit house. Well, okay. So what? I was lucky. I had the most amazing dad, phenomenal guy. And I've already talked about my mum, so I don't need to talk about her anymore and what she gave me. two amazing facilitators. The day-to-day and some of the stuff Dad did with me with my football learning, I look back and just go, far out, Dad. That was phenomenal what you did. They were there for me. And it's easy for a dad to do it because blood, it's easy. But if Dad wasn't there and Mum wasn't there and I wanted to make it in something, as a young kid, I wouldn't have understood this. But I'm telling you now, if you're a young kid and you're listening to this, or anybody that has no clue how to get to the next level or learn more, is to go and find someone, a mentor, somebody that you respect, somebody that you've seen do something, worthwhile, a place you want to get to. They're there. Go and pick their brain and say to them, like I said to you before, everyone's vain. Everybody wants to be seen a certain way and impart the knowledge that they've learnt. It's a great story. My dad said to me one day when we were going over, I had to play for the Burnie Dockers down in Tasmania. The Burnie Dockers were a statewide team. So it's like your VFL here. And I was bumming around in Penguin, my hometown, which is just the team there is just a local team, so, northwest of Tasmanian Football League. So very small, okay. Yeah. I mean, very easy to dominate that,
Yeah.
Chris Fagan, who's now the coach of the Brisbane Lions, was given the job as the coach of this new Tassie Mariners, the under 18 boys team, to play against the Calder Cannons, against the Preston Knights, against the Southern Stingrays, all of those guys, Grand Dragons. And he came up to the Northwest Coast and, I went through my football journey and I must have been doing some nice things at the time. But Fags rang my dad and said, listen, we're really interested in putting Russell on the list, which blew my dad's head off and blew me away as well. But he's not allowed to play for Penguin. If he plays for Penguin, he's not on the list. He goes and plays for Burnie in the Tasmanian State League, where Peter German, ex-North Melbourne superstar, is coaching. He'll give him good coaching. He can be on the list. And maybe, just maybe, he'll learn and develop over the next year as a 16-year-old to be, a regular 17, 18-year-old player. Dad put it to me, what do you want to do, mate? I was like, oh, God, I don't want to do. I want to play with my mates. He said, well, I just, I think that maybe you should listen to this guy and see what comes of it. So I did. Of course, Dad said it. I'm going. One night we're driving to training and he said to me, now I'm going to go up to the school. My dad was a teacher. I'm going to do some work up there. And when I pick you up after training, I want to have heard that you went up and asked Peter German this question. Ask him this question in a quiet moment. What did you do, Germo, to make it to the VFL, AFL? Tell me, because I'd love to know. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm 16. He's a grown-ass man. There's the senior team. I'm just a new guy. He's like, do it. Just do it. I promise you. Just do that. It will work for you. And I said, oh, okay, whatever. I got out of the car and I went into training and I trained with the men as a 16-year-old. It's a very scary thing to do as well. Dad was a little bit late to get back to me, probably by design, as I look back on it now. I went back into the training facility down there at West Park in Burnie and I sat around for a while and I thought, I better go and check if Dad's out there again. So I picked up my bag. As I'm walking out, Peter German's in the little gym by himself. Dad's words are in my ear. I'm like, it's even just been it's set up for me. All I have to do is walk on. God has gone, there you go, son. And I sort of looked at him and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. No way. And then I just could see my dad's face. And I'm like,
it must have been like, do it.
Yeah, it was. Do it. Don't do it. Do it. Don't. Anyway, I went over. I walked up to him and I said, Germo, in a little weak, meek, insipid voice, what did you do to make it to the AFL? Because I'd really love to know. I want to get better and I want to do it too. And you could see him just go, oh, right, okay, the chest popped out a little bit. Yeah. And off he went. Yep. For the next 10 minutes, off he went. He told me his story. And I learned a few things. Actually, really learned a few things. But that wasn't the benefit. I walked back to the car. Dad said, how did you go? Did you ask him? I said, yep. And he goes, good. Don't want to know anything about what he said. Don't even worry about it. That's all I wanted to know. And he would have been happy. So fast forward probably about 6-7 weeks. Chris Fagan rings Burnie and says, we need a mid-sized player to come and play. You've got 2 guys on the list there. I think we'll take Aaron Butler because he's got more of a mature body as a 16-year-old. He goes, yeah, you can take Aaron, but there's a better kid here that you need to play. His name is Russell Robertson. He goes, yeah, we know Robbo. All right, well, we might get him down. Off I went. I got the phone call. You picked. You're playing. So I went down and I played and I did a few things well, and I continued my football career from there. What I naturally did with I think my thing was I listened well. I listened to coaches well. Whenever a coach spoke to me from that point on, I clocked them. I looked at them and I listened to them, and then I went and tried to do whatever they said. Most of those coaches, being vain people, would then go away from that meeting and go, right, he's a good kid. You should work with that Russell Robertson. He's a really good kid. And then that person who heard that would go up to me and give me more information. And I would listen and I would give them the respect and I would walk away. That coach would go away and onwards and onwards it went, right?
Character, well, like it's the skill set on the ground and your ability to play, but it's the character that you're demonstrating, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because we can all kick goals, we can all mark, we can all handball. In fact, there's a million other guys out there that can do what I did equally. But what is going to set you apart, right? I bring culture because of that listening skill. They chose me because they felt good about me, because I made them feel good, right? I wouldn't have got to the Tassie Mariners in the first place to play that game if I hadn't have gone up to Peter Germany in the gym and asked him, because I wouldn't have been in front of his mind. He put me forward because I asked that question, because my dad made me, because my mentor made me do it, okay? As much as I didn't want to do it, I did it, all right? We're into a 5-day lockdown, bugger.
Oh, are we?
I'm through on my phone, yeah, on my watch.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's something we've got to deal with. Anyway, from there, I carried that all the way through my football career. I found mentors and people. I walked out there and I got them. So any kid, you, Holly, anyone, if you want to get better now, you don't know all the information, you can't possibly learn it all. There are people out there that have got it though, and they can give you just little bits and pieces, but use them as much as you possibly can. I think that's the key to sort of moving forward faster.
Yeah. Thank you so much. There is so much gold in what you've shared, and like massive thank you for vulnerability and just being really open. And like I love how you're just so comfortable in like masculine and feminine and just playing both sides of it. It's such a pleasure to chat with you.
That's the thing too, is, kids are, I look at kids and go, they're not female, they're not male, they're kids. My boy is 10 now, but and he's certainly becoming a boy now, but before this he's just been a human. He's cried over things that a man wouldn't cry over, and a woman probably would, right? But you don't cry, any of that sort of stuff. You just don't do that. I see him I've always seen him and those kids that I coach as just little humans that we're molding to be good people. Okay, the sad fact of life is that we do feel like we have to fall into this pre-designed ideal of what a man and a woman is. Certainly we don't have to do that. Certainly we can challenge culture and the way it's grown. I think we are in a time of change, but it's got a long way to go. But always embrace your female. Always embrace your male. Embrace the very thing that makes you a female. Don't feel ever vulnerable don't ever feel less than a guy. And a guy should never feel less than a woman when he's feeling like he's challenged and he's not the boss anymore and he's relinquished control, but also feel great about what it is that makes you a man. As long as that thing, makes it a safer place. There's a great saying, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, we've got power. I'm strong. I walk into a room and I feel like if I wanted to, I could be the last one walking out of there. No girl feels like that ever. Okay. There's a responsibility with that to protect. Okay. There's a responsibility to that to be vulnerable, and be equal, because if the role was reversed, how would you feel? So I'm all about that, just be vulnerable and try to. You can only really teach when you are vulnerable, when you're laying yourself bare. I mean, there's so much information. How do we teach people these days? Well, it's about being brutally open and honest about everything.
Real stuff, the
The real
actual
stuff.
real stuff that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so very much for spending an hour with me. I really appreciate your time and all of the wisdom and goodness that you've shared with us. And thank you for all the work that you're doing out there for children and women and all of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. It's amazing. So thank you.